Good morning, Vietnam! Now that I have your attention, welcome back to the Touchdown Black and Gold vlog. I am your host, Blair Parks. I'm coming to you from the man cave. I represent the black and gold of the Iowa Hawkeyes. Unfortunately, yet again, today's episode, my normal co-host, Charlie, is not present. He is still taking care of a family matter. So, Charlie, do what you have to do. Come back as soon as you can. We miss you, and we can't wait to bring you back. And Charlie, he represents the black and gold of the Missouri Tigers. For those of you who have been with us from day one, we appreciate it. Welcome back. And for those of you first-time viewers, welcome in. Wow, what an epic week one of football we had. Hopefully all of you had a good chance to breathe it all in, take it in, because it is history. And just some of the quick hits from week one. Great sights, great sounds. I mean, to see the fans in the stadiums again with all their traditions, to enjoy this, to enjoy that. Marching bands, tailgates, flyovers, national anthems, your favorite in-game traditions. It was excellent. Something that we all missed so much last year due to COVID-19. So for the rundown on today's show, we have a great episode lined up for you. We'll be covering 5 topics today, and we're going to be introducing you to a brand new segment. First of all, as usual, we'll go ahead and dive into any updated storylines and headlines from last week's show. Then we are going to move into some highlights of specific games and things that I saw from the weekend. Then we will go into our week one pick'em recap, which, trust me folks, I've seen better days. Hopefully none of you took my picks to Vegas or Atlantic City. Hopefully you still have a shelter over your head. I will definitely do better. I just need a week or two to redeem myself. Definitely took a little, quick kick to the you-know-what there after last week's Pick'em segment. After that, we will move into everyone's new favorite segment, Atonement, which I guess it's your favorite if you're not Cersei Lannister. So Atonement, and then we will move into our new segment that is premiering today, and that'll be Buy, Sell, or Push. So before we get started, as usual, I never claimed to be a professional at this. I'm just doing this for a hobby, to share with you my love of college football and everything that means, the tradition, the pageantry, the camaraderie, the family aspect of it, belonging to a community. And I will humble myself before you, the black and gold family, because I did make another gaffe, unfortunately, last week. And when I do put my foot in my mouth, I am the first to admit my mistake. I got my weeks mixed up. I believe that this coming week, Illinois was going to be hosting UTSA, the Road Runners. It actually happened over this weekend, and officially week 1, when I believe they hosted them week 2. And I was all thrown off because of week 0 when Illinois opened up hosting Nebraska. So now you're probably just as confused as I was. So my apologies. And if I would have known, if I would have checked my research, if I would have checked myself before I wrecked myself, according to what Cube would say, I would have seen that. And I probably would have definitely included that game in my pick'em segment. And I would have chosen UTSA. They're a solid team. They have a stud running back with a studly name, Sincere McCormick. And UTSA did pull the upset in Champaign on Saturday. So I missed an opportunity there to put that in my picks. But also, I missed a huge opportunity because Admiral Akbar, what was that? It's a trap. Definitely was a trap game. It had a huge letdown factor in it after a big win, week 0 for the Fighting Illini. That UTSA game was begging for a letdown game, and that is what played out. But have no fear, Fighting Illini fans. You're still in good position to get to 6 wins, as I predicted, but absolutely to eclipse 3, to get to 4 wins for what Vegas has you going. So, Fighting Illini, you're still in a good spot. So, my apologies for another gaffe. All right, so let's move into our first segment on today's episode, storylines and headlines. Only have 3 for you. Last week, now, I never claimed to be a soothsayer or an oracle, but I do happen to know a thing or two about this game. Last week, it was reported, as I shared with you, that BYU was in serious consideration to very shortly be invited to join the Big 12, who is losing Oklahoma and Texas. And that makes total sense to me and everybody else. If you're a fan, you understand what BYU brings to the table. They have a good brand, a good history, good fan base. And also what I just happened to throw out there, and looks like it's come to fruition, I said with BYU, the Big 12 should probably also go ahead and invite Houston, UCF, and maybe we can go ahead and invite Cincinnati as well. And that is exactly what has been reported at the end of last week and early this week, that those 4 teams may very, very shortly be invited to officially join the Big 12 conference. So I saw it coming. I mean, I do know a thing or two. So every now and then pay attention, because this guy does get the majority of things right. At least when it comes down to college football. My wife would disagree about certain other things, but that's a vlog for another day. So our storylines and headlines, other than those 3 teams along with BYU, are expected to join the Big 12. Jimbo Fisher, money, 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 money. Jimbo Fisher, who was already making $7.5 million a year as the head coach at Texas A&M, received a big-time payday increase starting New Year's Day of 2022. So in a matter of months, he will now be making $9 million a year. With that increase, he will be the second highest paid coach in college football behind, makes sense, Nick Saban at Alabama. $9 million for Jimbo Fisher. And earlier episodes, if you recall, I said this was going to be the year for the real Jimbo Fisher to please stand up, please stand up, please stand up. He had one excellent year at Texas A&M. They lost a lot in the offseason, struggled a little bit in their opener, but got the victory. Now he'll be making $9 million. And when the smoke clears, it'll be evident enough if he is earning that sort of paycheck at Texas A&M. So time will tell. But, hey, Jimbo Fisher and family, congratulations. You got paid. Straight cash, homie. Our last headline is one that it gives me a little bit of ill will to bring to you, because if you recall, earlier episodes I did predict that Minnesota could be a potential sleeper team out of the Big Ten West Division, but the Big Ten in general. They opened up with Ohio State on Thursday night, gave the Buckeyes all they could handle until the turning point in the game was Minnesota's excellent running back, Mohamed Ibrahim, left with an apparent lower leg injury. Yesterday afternoon it broke. They have not gone public with what the injury is. Most people are forecasting or predicting it is an Achilles issue, but Mohamed Ibrahim will be out for the entire season for the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Up until his departure in that game, it was a push-pull, nip-tuck kind of game. When he left, he had racked up 163 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns against the very porous, need improvement Ohio State defense. So, Mohamed Ibrahim, enjoy your rehab, get back quick, and I'm sure you're going to have an excellent career at the next level in the NFL. And for Minnesota, what does that mean? Where do they go from here? Well, they still have an excellent offensive line. Tanner Morgan still played very well in the pocket once his running back left the game. I still think Minnesota will be in a good spot from this injury, but absolutely cannot replace his production, his leadership, and the athlete that he is. So, tough break for Minnesota and their fans. All right, our next segment, let's move into highlights. Now, I don't have time to talk about each and every game, team, player that I like to highlight, but I just have picked a handful to share with you. First of all, our marquee matchup. And this was our marquee game in the Pick'em segment. Georgia and Clemson. They met up in a top 5 duel. Georgia outlasted Clemson to the tune of a final score of 10-3. Neither team found the end zone. That was due to a pick 6 by the Georgia defense, but that's all they needed. Now, I did pick Georgia to win, and so did Charlie. And both of us have Georgia as a playoff contender. What I take away from this game, it didn't surprise me that Georgia won, but how they won, and actually how both offenses looked. Now, make no mistake, both Clemson and Georgia are elite-type defenses. But I have big-time concerns and questions moving forward with both of these offenses. Where is the scoring going to come from? Especially from Clemson. Clemson's offensive line, my guy DJ Uiagalelei was really under duress the entire night. The offensive line did him no favors. The Georgia defense recorded 6 sacks, I believe. Actually, 7 sacks. And the Clemson rushing attack could only muster 2 yards. That's correct. 2 yards rushing total for the game. So kudos to Georgia's defense. And maybe their defense is that next level, pushing 85 Chicago Bears, and we'll have to wait and see. But the Clemson offense, especially the offensive line, big-time questions and issues moving forward, I think, for that program and that unit specifically. So, yes, 2 yards rushing for Clemson. That is a far cry from what they have been used to now, with the departure of Travis Etienne to the pros. And that was one of my biggest concerns for this squad. If you recall from earlier episodes, I did say, how are they going to replicate and bring back that sort of production from the running game? Only time will tell. So, great game. It was a defensive battle. If you like a pitcher's duel, so to speak, it was your kind of game. I like those old hard-fought games myself, so I really enjoyed it. But the firepower, it just was not there. But Georgia does win. And I will talk a little bit more specifically about Clemson later in this episode and the ACC as a whole. My next highlight, UCLA. If you recall, this guy right here, picked UCLA to upset LSU. When most experts, most pundits did not believe that was going to be the case because of the usual assessment that the Pac-12 is not physical, they can't control the lines of scrimmage, they don't have the speed, they don't have the athletes on the field. It was the exact opposite. UCLA physically dominated LSU and Coach Ed Orgeron, go Tigers, to the point to where they gave up 200 yards rushing to this UCLA squad. The final score ended up being 38-27, which does not seem like a blowout. And I am not saying that this was an absolute boat racing or ass waxing. It wasn't. it was one of those sort of scores on the scoreboard that looks closer than what it actually was. This game was never really in doubt for UCLA. So huge win for that program, and especially for Chip Kelly as he tries to get himself off the hot seat. And UCLA looked really, really good. That was actually I believe that was the most impressive win of the weekend. I mean, Georgia over Clemson absolutely has playoff implications, top 5 matchup, but this UCLA victory was, I believe, the most impressive victory of the opening weekend. Absolutely. So well done to you, but also to the Pac-12 as a conference as a whole. It's been a long time since the Pac-12 has recorded this sort of a statement victory. You know, a lot of you who are watching the newer generation, the 20-somethings, you have no recollection or memory of how dominant the Conference of Champions has been or was not all that long ago. So this was a huge win for UCLA and the Pac-12. So kudos to you. And I also will talk a little bit more about the Pac-12 conference later on in this episode. Now let's get on to our two teams. M-I-Z-Z-O-U. Missouri got the lead. They got the victory, excuse me. They took care of Central Michigan 34-24. Now, as you recall, last week, I did predict this was going to be a close game, 14, 17 points around halftime, but not a 10-point victory at the sounding of the buzzer or the gun. I did not see this coming. Now, Central Michigan did bring back a lot of production and experience from last year, but Missouri definitely needs to shore some things up, especially on the defensive line unit and the offensive line. The offensive line early in the game really couldn't give Connor Bazelak a lot of time, really weren't opening a lot of holes for the Missouri running game. Late in the second half, they definitely took care of business. Tyler Beatty went off late in the second half to secure the win. But the defensive line, which that was my biggest question mark, and also Charlie's too for this team. Last year, the defensive line unit just could not get off the field when they needed to. Too many teams sustained long drives that wore them out, and from that, they could not rebound. Central Michigan at times just ran the ball at will against the Missouri defensive front. They absolutely need to make adjustments, bear down, take care of business, because this game, the next game this weekend, if they don't do that, it's going to be a long night for Missouri potentially at Lexington, Kentucky. Huge game this Saturday night for Mizzou as they take on Kentucky. Watch this week for our Week 2 preview show, and we'll talk more about that big game. But congrats, Mizzou, you're 1-0. Now, IOWA. Big time victory for our Hawkeyes. Huge statement win. Woo! Welcome back and welcome home, fans. It was a great sight to see the stands at Kinnick Stadium, full capacity, the noise, how much the fans were into it, and that definitely gave the Hawkeyes a huge benefit for that home crowd. This game was touted to be all about Indiana, and Indiana, make no mistake, they are a very good team, but after last year, to me, this was a show-me kind of game. Last year, they recorded program-changing victories against Michigan, Penn State, Wisconsin. They took Ohio State to the finish line in a drag-them-out, fight-out kind of game. They lost by a touchdown. But Penn State and Michigan finished the season with losing records. So this was really a show me how good you can be. Are you really going to be able to challenge Ohio State for the Big Ten East crown? There still is a lot of season left, but Indiana just never seemed prepared for this game. The final score, well, first of all, early on, Iowa scored, I believe, on their third play from a scrimmage, a 56-yard touchdown run by Tyler Goodson. They did receive the ball at kickoff. During Indiana's first offensive series, Iowa was able to get a pick six, and before you knew it, 14-0 like that. And from that moment on, it was game. Blouses. Indiana never got themselves into the game after that. Final score, Iowa 34, Indiana 6. Huge win. And the Iowa defense, another workman type afternoon. They just do what they do. The streak is now 23. 23 straight games. Iowa has held their opponents to under 25 points. A remarkable streak that's going on right now for the Iowa defense. Their back seven looks to be the real deal. My biggest concerns for their defense going into the season was their defensive line. What they really did on Saturday was just they held the point of attack, and their linebackers really were able to clean up. But their defensive secondary has a chance to be very, very good. I mean, they flexed big time Arnold Schwarzenegger style in this game as a defensive unit total. So well done, Iowa. You're 1-0. And like an old friend told me that, hey, after week one, half the teams are undefeated, the other half aren't. So Missouri, Iowa, both 1-0 on the right side to start with. Next highlight, I have got to give some love and shout out to the FCS programs. You talk about FCS dominance on opening Saturday. And Friday, opening week in general. What a great story this is. The FCS scored 6 wins over Division I opponents. Now, highlighting those, Friday night, South Dakota State, the Jackrabbits, who, remember, that was our FCS highlight pick of the week. Every week during our Pick'em segment, we'll always pick one FCS spotlight game. And they went to Colorado State and absolutely boat raced the Rams. Unfortunately, this guy I picked Colorado State to win like a real putz. I guess you can call me Mr. Putz McPutzington. I should have gone with the Jackrabbits. Charlie did. Kudos to my co-host. So that was one. That was a big highlight win. But others, Vanderbilt. East Tennessee State University, ETSU, went into Nashville and beat Vandy by 20 points, I believe the final score margin was. Vandy is already a very down program, but to lose at home as an SEC squad where it just happens to mean more, okay, it depends on who you ask. But this is a huge loss for Vandy. I mean, and Clark Lee, this was his opening game, his first game at the helm of the new coach, and to lose to East Tennessee State, wow. Rough loss for the Commodores at home. Another one this is the headliner of those 6 wins by the FCS, is Montana. The Grizzlies went to number 20 Washington. Now remember, I picked Washington to win the Pac-12 North. The Grizzlies had other plans. The Grizzlies go into their house and pull off the victory. Great, huge win for Montana, and just a great showing for the FCS in general in week one. Now, others that were very, very close. Now, Missouri State took Oklahoma State in Stillwater to the wire. The Oklahoma State defense made a stop at the end, and they won 23-16. Now, another close call, and this one made me kind of sweat it out a little bit. Northern Iowa went into Ames, and the Iowa State Cyclones, who I did pick as my upset playoff contender. I have them making the playoffs this year as the 4 seed. They were able to record the victory 16-10 against the Northern Iowa Panthers. It's way too close to call. I chalk that up potentially as maybe Iowa State was looking ahead to this week's battle with my Hawkeyes, which game day made the announcement Sunday. They'll be in Ames. The crew will be there. They're coming to our city. Let's go ahead and celebrate proper. Let's enjoy that. The Hawkeye State will be on full display for the Cy-Hawk Trophy game this Saturday. So much love. Great job to the FCS. Once again, maybe they're potentially closing that gap on Division I opponents. Time will tell. Now, my last highlight is to the Kansas Jayhawks. Now, some of you out there watching may disagree with this. If you know anything about college football, you know just how bad Kansas football has been. They are the Vanderbilt of the Big 12. They did record a victory on Saturday, 17-14 over the previously mentioned FCS opponent, South Dakota. They got a score late to win, 17-14. Celebration, exuberance all over Lawrence, Kansas, to where even the fans stormed the field. Now, some people would say, act like you've been there before. You beat an FCS squad. But the problem is they haven't been there before. It's been a long time. Victories at Kansas are few and far in between. I have no problem with the program and the students celebrating a victory at Kansas. So great for you. Lance Leipold, one of my favorite offseason hirings for coaching changes, starts 1-0 at Kansas. Well done. Excellent job. So that is our highlights for the weekend. Let me get a quick swig of agua. Now our next topic is going to be a little bit painful for me because while I'm with you, I put everything on the line, and usually I am a little bit better. I do need to make amends. I need to have a few strong weeks. I'm putting my credibility on the line. The Pick'em Week 1 recap, not my best week. Now, to refresh some of you if you're watching, what Charlie and I will do, our weekend preview show, which should be coming on later this week, probably Thursday, if not Friday morning. I'll pick 15 games a week. I'm always going to highlight the marquee matchup of the week, the FCS matchup of the week, FCS spotlight game. We'll always pick Iowa and Missouri's games. We'll have the non-Power 5 showcase game, and always have a spotlight on one of the academies, Air Force, Army, Navy. And what we set ourselves was we set a goal to get 70%. We're just picking straight up. We're not doing any lines. So this should technically be a lot easier. 70% is our goal, but I really would like to be closer to 75%. Week 1's results, Charlie did get me by 2 games. So I am not mathematically eliminated from catching Charlie. I just need a couple good weeks. But the final recap, at the end of week 1, Charlie was 10-5 and I was 8-7. So not mathematically terminated or eliminated from catching you, Charlie, but getting to 70%, I might be eliminated already. As of right now, Charlie's sitting at 67%, and I'm at 53%, going 8-7. Whew. Not our best week, folks. Just bear with us. We'll get it right. I will make amends for my mistakes. Perhaps atone for my mistakes. Highlights of that Pick'em segment. Games that we both missed. We both got North Carolina wrong, which we'll talk more about the ACC and specifically North Carolina later in this episode. We both missed the Wisconsin game. Penn State flexed big time, got a huge win in Madison, Wisconsin. Huge win for Penn State. We both got West Virginia wrong. Maryland took care of business. The Big Ten flexed again. And we both missed on the Navy game. And that game was never really in doubt. Marshall walks away with a big victory. And that shouldn't surprise me. Last week, I said Marshall could be one of those potential teams that could cause some chaos. Chaos is a ladder, like Lord Peter Baelish would say. So that shouldn't have surprised me, and I should have gone with Marshall, but it's hard for me to pick against the academies, especially when it's during our academy spotlight games. But ones that where we differed, Charlie was able to hold over me. He got Texas right. I picked the Ragin' Cajuns. He picked Notre Dame. I had Florida State, which almost pulled off a huge upset in overtime. And Mackenzie Milton, a great story, coming off the bench late, down 18 points. Florida State ties them, goes into overtime after such a gruesome injury. And folks, I would like to say check out his injury of 3 years ago, but don't, because it will make you sick to your stomach. Just the fact that this young man is even walking, nonetheless playing college football Division I at a signature program, is an absolute miraculous miracle. So please, if you don't know the Mackenzie Milton story, do some research. It is nothing short but inspirational, Rudy style right there. And also, Charlie got South Dakota State over me. I picked Colorado State, me being the putz that I am. But I was able to get the UCLA game over LSU on Charlie. So that's where we differed. So stay tuned. Later this week, we'll do our pick'em segment for week 2. And hopefully, things will go a little bit better for us. Well, me specifically. All right. Our next topic for the day, everyone's favorite segment. It is time for Atonement. And today, I must, in front of the black and gold family, the old gods and the new, quarterback Sam Howell from North Carolina, you have been brought here to answer for your sins. Now, before your sins can be out, you must make your walk of atonement. Sam Howell. If you recall from earlier episodes, I believed that Sam Howell was going to be a Heisman Trophy finalist. They opened up as the number 10 team in the nation at Virginia Tech. And let's just say, Sam Howell, your Heisman candidacy, after one short week, has come to an end. Shame, shame, shame. The final stats for Sam Howell are as follows. He was 17 of 32 passing for 208 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. That is not Heisman Trophy caliber at all. Now, I don't know. Potentially, Virginia Tech's defense might be next level legit. I don't anticipate that, but maybe they could. So, as the season plays out, that loss may not be as bad as it appears right now. And North Carolina still holds their destiny in their hands. They still can take care of business, win the ACC Coastal Division, and that's who I did predict was going to take home that division. Miami they still have to take care of business against Miami, but they definitely were exposed on Saturday against Alabama. But I also have to say, for the North Carolina offensive line, it wasn't all Sam Howell's fault. The offensive line gave up 6 sacks, and Sam Howell was running for his life most of the night. But a true sinner cannot project their sins on others. You still made bad decision after bad decision leading to those interceptions, and ultimately you fell flat and they lost 17-10. Sam Howell, shame, shame, shame. Now for my atonement. Blair Parks, you went 8-7 for your week 1 pick'em. You must get yourself together, atone. People are relying on you. So, this is your last chance. So, Blair Parks, for your lack of picks week 1, shame, shame, shame. Not the start that both myself and quarterback Sam Howell wanted to see from week 1. So unfortunately, I believe his Heisman candidacy is over. We can put that to rest right here, and right now. He still, I'm sure, will have his 400 or 500 yard passing games against Duke, Wake Forest, the lower tier of the ACC. Well, probably will have 300 yards against its better teams as well, but on the Heisman radar, boom, boom, he was. Now he's off. Now, let's move on to our last topic of the day: buy, sell, and push. Now this is the premiere of this segment, and I hope you will enjoy it. So I'm going to talk about a few things more in depth. Some of these I've already kind of brought up or referenced quickly, but now I will share more of my thoughts with you. So let's talk about the Clemson offensive line. They mightily struggled, as I mentioned, against Georgia, but this is my statement. The Clemson offensive line will be just fine moving forward. This, to me, this is a push. I am not here to buy or sell that. That statement, I am very concerned for this Clemson offensive line. Where is their offense going to come from? Now, within the ACC, they could right the ship. They could still take care of business. They could run the table. But what I see right now, if they have to square off with another playoff caliber team, I do not see that offensive line. I don't see them slowing down a legitimate defense. I think the exact same outcome could happen. That is what I foresee. But maybe I'm wrong. But once again, from last episode, I did not, I don't believe Clemson is going to make the playoffs this year anyway. So now that they do have a loss, we'll see what plays out with the rest of the college football landscape. But I absolutely, right now, I'm going to simply push on this one, not buy or sell it. But if we have another showing like that against an ACC opponent or another non-conference opponent, I'll quickly be selling that statement, that they will not be fine moving forward. My next statement. Alabama. Alabama took absolute care of Miami. Now, this Miami squad returns a lot from last season. They have potential to be a dynamic offense. They bring back a lot of starters from the defensive side of the ball. Charlie liked Miami to beat North Carolina to win the Coastal Division, but they got absolutely housed by Alabama. 44-13. Was never really a competitive game at any moment. Now, Alabama did replace a ton of production that went to the NFL via graduation or early departure from last season, and they did win the national title again last year. But here's my statement. After another dominant showing against a highly ranked Miami squad, can we basically pencil Alabama into the playoff or even pencil them as the national title winner over the entire field? I'm going to say sell that. I am not ready to say that to take Alabama against the field. I still think there are teams that potentially could give them problems, but I am absolutely going to buy that they are the only team right now of the 4 playoff teams that I chose. They are the only ones right now that I am sure of. In a little bit, I will refresh your memories on the 4 playoff teams that I picked. Alabama is the only one right now that I feel good about. But it's only been 1 week. We'll have to wait and see. But I still right now cannot bet the Alabama against the field. I still think there are teams that could potentially beat them on the field, but right now it's looking like it's going to be few, very, very few once again this season. My next team, my next buy, sell, or push is deals with the Ohio State Buckeyes offense. If you watch Thursday night's game, the Ohio State offense scored 5 plays of 50 yards or more. And they also recorded on the defensive side of the ball a a strip sack, and then a scoop six. So 5 plays on the offensive side of the ball of 50 yards or more. You talk about quick strike. So I'm going to say this. My statement is this year's Ohio State Buckeye offense is more explosive than last year's national runner-up. I'm going to say sell on this as well. They are loaded, absolutely oozing with talent at Ohio State. But the one thing that I have to mention, and this is something that my brother, we were texting during the game, and Anthony said it exactly right. Never during that game did Ohio State ever have to march the field. Now, Minnesota had 40 minutes of possession against Ohio State. Think about that. 40 minutes. And they really were able to do whatever they wanted to against the Ohio State defense. Their rushing attack, they recorded over 200 yards against them. But very quickly, just like that, via those 5 plays and that scoop six, they answered right back. I am not sold yet on this Ohio State offense. They have playmakers left and right. But what's going to happen if they actually have to stay on the field? Are they going to be able to march and score? We don't know yet. So I do not believe they're as explosive that some people believe compared to last year's squad. They've got a huge test this week, and our spotlight game is going to be Oregon at Ohio State. Stay tuned for this week's episode later in the week to see how we believe that one's going to play out. Yeah, but Ohio State, offense looked good, but their defense still have issues. And Ohio State, I did not pick them to be a playoff contender this season. And this is what I think it's going to come down to. Their defense absolutely needs to strap up the chin straps, bear down, get physical, and get it done. They absolutely have way too many issues and concerns for me to think that they are a playoff team right now. I still believe they will, if they get one loss, that may not be enough if their defense is going to continue to look that way. But, as I say all the time, we'll see what plays out. My next 3, I'm going to talk about 3 conferences specifically. First, this statement deals with the Big Ten. The Big Ten Conference owned Week 1 as a whole. I am 100% buying that statement because they gave us great matchups right out of the gate. Good on good, ranked against ranked. Now, some people don't necessarily like the idea of opening with a conference game. Most people do prefer that you have a quote-unquote tune-up game because a conference loss goes much further than a non-conference win or loss. It just does. Especially a really good team could stumble out of the gate, right the ship, but because of that early season loss, they could find themselves left out of a major bowl. But I loved it. I loved, Thursday night, Minnesota, Ohio State. I loved Friday night, Michigan State goes into Evanston and absolutely runs wild on Northwestern. And my guy, Coach Pat Fitzgerald, I feel for you, Fitzy. And then Saturday, the 11 o'clock, big noon kickoff on Fox. Penn State going to Camp Randall, ranked on ranked, Penn State, Wisconsin, and they flexed, and Penn State escapes with a victory. And then the 2:30 game, a ranked Indiana squad at my Hawkeyes, and we talked about that game already. I love seeing the good on good, and I actually would like the Big Ten to do this again in the future. So kudos to the Big Ten. You absolutely owned Week 1 as a conference. Now my next deals with the ACC. So this statement, after a flame-out opening weekend, the ACC now has been eliminated from playoff participation and contention. I actually am going to buy this statement. That's a shock. Now, big things happened to the ACC in opening week. What really hurts them is their 3 main racehorses, Miami, North Carolina, and their prize thoroughbred, Clemson, all took losses. Now, North Carolina did lose to a conference foe in Virginia Tech, as I mentioned, But still, those were your 3 highest ranked squads, and they all took losses. Now, I did not pick, once again, Clemson to make the playoff or any ACC squad. Now, let's say if Clemson even runs the table, even if they look good doing it, after how they looked against Georgia with no offense whatsoever, issues on the O-line, I don't think they necessarily would even deserve to be there. But we'll have to wait and see what they look like and what other teams ahead of them do and don't do. But not only did those 3 prize teams lose in the ACC, let's give you 1 second. This is what else transpired in the conference. Charlotte, the Charlotte 49ers, a non-Power 5 team, beat Duke, and while beating Duke, recorded their first ever victory against a Power 5 opponent. So kudos to you. I give you a golf clap, Charlotte, and I should have given a golf clap earlier to all those FCS teams who got victories over Division I. Here's your belated golf clap. Not just that, but Northern Illinois, the Huskies out of the MAC conference, never sleep on the MAC, got a victory at Georgia Tech. A much improved Florida State team, and we talked a little bit about that, and the McKenzie and Milton story is something of inspiration. Much better team, but they still lost. They came up a little bit short against Notre Dame. I picked them to win. I still think Notre Dame has major question marks. I think they are a little overrated, but Florida State lost as well. And also Louisville. Last night, Louisville got absolutely taken behind the shed by Ole Miss. A very impressive-looking Ole Miss team, by the way. So, to me, I think the ACC's best victory over the weekend was probably Syracuse at Ohio. And Syracuse, Dino Babers, their coach, absolutely on the hot seat, as I mentioned in earlier episodes. And Ohio, last week, I did say that could be a team that could surprise, make a little bit noise, and Syracuse, held on for a pretty convincing win at Ohio. So the ACC, to me, they're bearing the brunt of, hey, let's not pay that much attention to them. They absolutely underperformed opening week, and I think they are out of playoff contention. I might be wrong. Like Charles Barkley says, I may be wrong, but I sure don't hope so. But I don't think so either. So the next buy, sell, or push, I'm going to go to the Pac-12 conference. Now, other than obviously the signature win, biggest win that I believed was UCLA over LSU. If you take that game away, this is the statement. Taking away the UCLA victory over LSU, the Pac-12 conference is also eliminated already from playoff participation and consideration. That's a push for me. Now, if LSU would have gotten the victory, I would also say Pac-12, join the ACC, get to the back of the bus, you're not in the playoff. But we have to wait and see. Now, the Pac-12 took some awful losses as well, just like their ACC counterparts. Oh, wow. Reading some of these, I already mentioned that a ranked Washington team lost to FCS Montana. Arizona lost to BYU, and BYU lost, once again, first-round draft pick in Zach Wilson, no longer on the team, as long as he's also no longer there is Miss Lisa Wilson also. So Arizona loses at home to a very revamped BYU squad. Cal, who I believe could have been, I did predict they could be one of those sleeper teams that could cause some chaos, lost at home to Nevada. But that shouldn't be a big surprise. Last week I said Nevada out of the Mountain West could be another one of those potential sleeper teams. Washington State lost at home to the Utah State Aggies, the other Aggies, not from Texas A&M. So the Pac-12 definitely had a rough opening week. And also Stanford lost on the road at Kansas State. That was one of our picks. And both Charlie and I picked Kansas State to win. That's a tough game for Stanford to go on the road, a tough environment. So that's not something that you can hang your head in. And also, Oregon State lost at Purdue. Oregon State really is a program kind of in flux that's been bottom of the barrel for a while. So we expected Purdue to take care of business. So they did. So that's not a bad loss either. But for the rest of the Pac-12 and your prized thoroughbred, Oregon, who they can make all of this go away. If they go to Columbus this Saturday to the Ohio State University, not this would put the Pac-12 right back into play. Then very quickly, this would go from a push to a sell, because that victory that Oregon has in front of them potentially would absolutely make the Pac-12 a playoff contender. But Oregon State struggled with a very game Fresno State squad. They won by a single touchdown, by 7, 31-24. And that game came down to late in the fourth quarter, so it was in doubt most of the game. So the Pac-12, not a strong showing. But I'm going to push for now on that they are, at this point, out of the playoffs. Okay, so let's move on now to my next buy, sell, or push. With the removal of Sam Howell, let's talk a little bit of Heisman Trophy finalist. Notre Dame QB Jack Cohn and Ole Miss quarterback Matt Corral have now made themselves potential Heisman Trophy finalists. And that is an absolute buy. They both looked great in their opening games. Jack Cohn, I've watched a lot of him in the past. At Wisconsin was kind of more known as a game manager, but he was a game leader for Notre Dame at Florida State on Sunday night. And Matt Corral last night for Ole Miss, slinging the ball up and down the field. That offense looks potent. SEC squads, I know you've already taken notice of the Ole Miss offense. They're not coming in under the radar. But trust me, if you get behind this squad, it'll be tough for you to come back. They are pedal to the metal offensively the entire game. So those two, Jack Cohn and Matt Corral, I believe now have put themselves in contention for Heisman Trophy finalists. And now my last buy, sell, or push. Have to give a little bit more love to the UTSA Roadrunners, who did go into Champaign, as I expected that they would. Took care of business, got the victory. So running back Sincere McCormick has the best name for a running back in college football. That is a sell. That title belongs to the Kentucky running back, Kavasier Smoke. That's right, people. Kavasier Smoke reminds me of the ladies' man and his half a bottle of Kavasier. So that's a name that we'll definitely talk a little bit more about, or I will talk more about later this week during our Week 2 preview, because that running back of Kavasier Smoke is somebody that Missouri is going to have to take care of. Because after this week's game, I've already mentioned, defensive line needs to get a little tougher. So that's it. That's our Week 1 review. I hope you enjoyed it. As I mentioned, the Week 2 preview should be out either Thursday or Friday. In the meantime, let me know how I'm doing. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, share them. I will do whatever I can to get your comments on the air. Let me know if I'm still a goofball, unintelligent, unattractive, or maybe attractive to some of you too. I would say maybe adjust your camera feed there. But let me know how we're doing. Charlie and I appreciate you being with us. You know, without you, this wouldn't be possible. Thank you for everything you do. And until later this week, thanks for joining the Touchdown Black and Gold vlog. We'll see you in a few days. Peace out.